All right. So it's 12:02, so we're 2 minutes behind, and we're just gonna kick this off. I am Eva Ben, and I am one of the founders of Bulgarian Women in Tech. And I'm here with Angela Marafino representing WoSEC, which we're collaborating in throwing this event together, bringing you Heath, the cyber mentor. So before we pass it off to Heath, just want to quickly introduce how this session will go. You guys will be muted by default. Please remain muted out of respect for the speakers and everybody else. If you have a question and you need to kind of, you need to ask it, just type it in the chat, and then I will be reviewing all the questions and I'll make sure we pass it on to Heath. So that is it, and let's get started. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about Bulgarian Women in Tech. If you guys haven't heard about us, we are a community out of the Seattle Pacific Northwest area, and we are essentially, our mission is to impact, increase the impact of women having technology across the globe. So we do this through providing free opportunities for learning, for education, for mentoring, for collaboration, etc. Always free of cost, and we're just here to help kind of propel your career forward. And although our focus is on women, we are very inclusive. We drive our objectives through inclusion and diversity, and we welcome men to all of our events and all of our educational efforts. So before kind of even talking further, I just want to show you a quick video that will help you understand a little bit more who we are.
Women in tech have become a hot topic in the recent years, but why should we care? The obvious answer is that women represent 50% of the world's population. Yet statistically, they remain underrepresented in the tech industries, holding only 20% of the tech jobs in the US. The World Economic Forum says empowering women globally has the potential to bring 28 trillion economic growth within the next 7 years. Having men and women from different backgrounds working in tech is essential for maximizing innovation. So why are we still struggling to close the gender gap in the technology industry? Gender bias is still a thing in the tech world. And unwittingly, companies often foster a culture that doesn't encourage women to pursue a career in tech. Not enough female mentors and not having enough female examples to emulate also play a big part in it. Physically seeing and witnessing what we can become is so important. Empowering women in tech is not only important for the women today, but it's also essential in shaping the path forward for future generations. We need women to support women. Introducing Bulgarian Women in Tech. Founded in Seattle, this organization aims to support and grow the women in tech across the globe. Our goal is to increase women's global impact in tech through collaboration, growing, inspiring, celebrating, mentoring, and creating opportunities for each other. We drive our objectives forward by embracing diversity and inclusion. Although this community aims to build a support network for women with Bulgarian heritage, we welcome anyone, regardless of their gender, ethnicity, or current profession. Join us and connect with like-minded women working in the technology fields, find mentorship opportunities, and meet people you can learn from. Inspire and get inspired while cultivating long-term career success in the technology field through developing yourself personally and professionally. Learn through deep dives into tech trends that are changing the technology landscape, arming you with the knowledge and drive to write your own success story. Join us in driving gender diversity in the world's fastest growing industry. Find details on our website.
Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed this. We really are just community focused on giving back. We're not charging for anything. We're gonna have a lot more series in the career life of various different professions. So I just want to pass it off to Angela, who will give you a quick introduction on Wasak and what this is.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I am one of the co-organizers of WoSEC Seattle. I also still run the Denver chapter as I just moved from there. And so I co-organize that one as well. We're an international group that shares some of the same views as Bulgarian Women in Tech. So being super inclusive, trying to give free resources and not charging people for learning and meeting other women in tech and others outside of just our small group here. So that's why we've kind of combined this event, right? Trying to branch out. If we don't have a chapter in your area, and some of the links in the chat should show you where we currently have chapters, feel free to reach out. We're always looking for people to start new chapters in their city if they don't have one. So Seattle is comprised of the greater Seattle area, so we typically move locations when we can meet in person, right? Whenever that happens again, we'll be able to move between Seattle and the east side. So always looking for more people to join. If you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Chloe Mestagi. She's quite prominent on social media as well. So definitely reach out, and also like in any country. So don't think this is just US, it's all over the world. Thanks for joining, and I will hand it back to Eva.
Thank you. Yeah, Wasak is absolutely amazing. Such an impactful organization to bring women in security together. So passing it off to the person you actually want to hear from, and that is Heath, who you guys, I'm sure, are familiar who that is, cyber mentor. He is just an amazing self-made ethical hacker, CEO and founder of his own company, TCM Security. And he's a top instructor on YouTube and Udemy. And he's just so good at articulating all these complex technical topics. Even myself, I am just a huge fan of him, and I'm super excited to hear from him. So I'll pass it off.
All right. So welcome, everybody. Today's topic is going to be just about the day in the life of an ethical hacker, and kind of about, I guess, the many different hats that we can potentially wear on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to just speak for a little bit, tell you about who I am. We'll go through all of this, and then if there's any questions at the end, we'll take questions as well. So already been introduced. This is just a quick slide about me. I'm a husband, hacker, military veteran. I used to be an accountant, and I've turned into this cybersecurity geek. And so you'll notice too, as I talk about these things and the principles of being a hacker, that if you're interested in this field, you can come from pretty much any background. It's more of the qualities and traits that you have to have than the education or along those lines. So you'll see a lot of different people come from a lot of different backgrounds. Me personally, I was an accountant. So day to day, I am a business owner over at TCM Security, completely focused on ethical hacking and cybersecurity consulting. And if you want to find me anywhere, pretty much it's the Cyber Mentor on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter. If you want to look me up on Udemy, you could just search by Heath Adams or Practical Ethical Hacking. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about why pen testing, and we'll talk about my day-to-day and how it could differ from day-to-day. We'll talk about some of the technical skills that you're going to need to be a pen tester, and some of the soft skills that you're going to need to be a pen tester or ethical hacker. We'll talk about resources and certifications that can kind of help guide you there. And then we'll open up the floor for Q&A if you have any questions for me. So work from home is probably the best perk of pen testing for me. Now, there are companies out there, we talk about pen testing, that are still not work from home, but a good majority of them have shifted and are allowing you to work from home. And the entire time that I've been in pen testing, I've worked from home, fully remote. It's been pretty standard hours, 40 hours a week, and good quality of life. Everything along those lines. So I get to roll out of bed most days at like 7:50, 7:55, grab some coffee and get to work. I don't have to do that 30-minute to an hour drive into work every day, or deal with traffic, or even have to deal with coworkers sometimes. So it's a lot easier just to work from home from my perspective, and that's one of the things I absolutely love about it. Second thing is definitely high salaries. So when I started my first role in pen testing, I was starting at $102,000, and I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is not a high cost living place by any means. So six figures goes a long way there, and you can pull down six figures pretty easily in this field. So it's definitely a big perk. And if you're motivated, if you work in the field for a while, easily in the double six figures, so like 200,000 and up, especially based on location. If you're in a San Francisco or a Seattle or New York or somewhere with a high cost of living, you can pull even higher salaries. So that's a big perk of it. Another big perk is, again, that work-life balance and the good benefits. I have pretty much health insurance paid for. We're in such demand as ethical hackers that really it's like they kind of cater to you at this point right now. So the work-life balance being typically 40 hours a week, and just having that nice lifestyle with the work from home and the high salaries and everything else, it's really nice. And the other thing that I really like about it is it's mentally stimulating. So what we get to do is it's always changing. So you talk about ethical hacking and trying to break into somebody's computer. Well, something that you use today might not be available to you tomorrow. There might be a patch for that tomorrow, and then there might be the next day a new attack comes out, and you have to learn that. So like you have to be learning every single day something new, and kind of playing this cat and mouse game against the defenses that kind of come along. So it's one of those things where if you like to learn and you like that mental stimulation, it's a great field to be in. And lastly, of course, it is legal breaking and entering. People pay you to hack their systems. People pay you to break into their buildings. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we do, and it's all legal. So you get paid to do it, and it's really awesome. So let's kind of talk about from there what an actual day-to-day is like, and what some of the things that we do, and really what is ethical hacking. So we talked about that rolling out of bed. I get out of bed at like 7:50, 7:55, and I have the coffee ready, and I'll start my day at 8 o'clock. So we're all to bed, and then there's all these different types of, you can see these different types of assessments that we can do, and I'll kind of go through them. So we wear a few different hats. We wear this technical hat here that you'll see. We wear this report writing hat, and we also wear this debrief hat where we're actually in front of clients. This is as a consultant type role. So we have what are called network assessments, and we break them down kind of into external and internal. So from an external perspective, imagine that you're a company, and somebody is trying to hack you from whatever country you want to imagine. And they're in their mom's basement, whatever that typical hacker stereotype. They're trying to break into your company. That's what we try to emulate or simulate, is that we try to break into your company from our home. We're going to look at things like your perimeter and see if you're up to date on your patching and how your security is. But a lot of the things that we actually look at and what we revolve around are what are passwords and breached information that are out there. So if you've ever heard of like the LinkedIn breach, or any of those major data breaches where they collect user information, those are all online. And we can say we're searching for XYZ company, or we're hacking XYZ. We can go search a database for XYZ company, pull down all the information about the people that have been breached in the past, and then use the passwords from those breaches to try to break in. We could also use information like that, such as usernames, and then try passwords that are maybe common, such as like right now, spring 2020 exclamation would get us into a lot of companies, just because it's that common usage of password length, etc. And we see a fall, or a like fall, spring, etc. year exclamation pound type deal. So season, year, character type deal. So, and that's how we get into a lot of externals, and it really revolves around bad passwords, just user as a weakness. And the externals are typically like, I like to think of it as like a house. Like you spend a lot more time on the external facing side of things, and you protect your house in the same way. You might have double locks on your doors. You might have an alarm system. You might have bright lights. You might have dogs. You really focus on that security. But once you're inside the house, things kind of get, maybe a little shaky. Your locks might have no locks on the doors internally, or you might have just like one of those locks where you can just pop a little bobby pin in there and pop it open. That's kind of how external versus internal networks are. The internal networks, not nearly as well protected or patched, so we find a lot of patching issues. At the same time, we actually focus most of our attack methodology on Active Directory based attacks. So most, I think 95% of the Fortune 1000, somewhere above that, even greater percent than that, use Active Directory in one way or another in their environments. So most of the internal attacks are attacking Active Directory and those based of attacks. And when we say internal, by the way, what I'm saying is we're assuming that we've breached the network. So maybe we were doing some password spraying and we're trying that spring 2019 or fall 2020 or whatever it is, and we get in externally. Now we're inside the network. Now we're trying to get in and we're trying to control or get information out or control the domain or do something malicious with what our intent is, depending on the goals of the client. So the internal can be even something like I send a phishing email with malware to you and you open it and it talks back to me, and then I'm on your computer and I'm you now. So there's a lot of different ways to think about internal access, but all it means is that we're inside the network. So from the internal perspective, we're evaluating the network based on a customer goal. So it could be, hey, I want you to compromise this entire domain, or hey, we have this really sensitive information or proprietary information that we don't want anybody else to get. And if they got into our network and found this, it would be really bad. So can you see if you can find this, or if you can get to this? You can even think like PCI compliance with credit cards and user information, or HIPAA with medical. Just the things that we could access as attackers, or if a hacker actually got in and got to that data, it would be really bad. So they are wanting us to find out if we can get there first before somebody else does. So that's kind of how the network plays out. We also do what's called a web application assessment. So you could think of a web application like pretty much any website that you use. It could be maybe a mobile application. It could be something even internally custom to you that you're not even on the outside, but you might be afraid that somebody gains access internally and gets access to this data. It could be medical data or something along those lines. So you want to make sure that that application is safe. So a lot of web application revolves around what's called this OWASP guidelines, which are these web application pen testing guidelines. And we're looking for all different types of vulnerabilities. And if I start spewing these out, you may know them, you may not, but we're talking SQL injection, cross-site scripting, what's called like the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. We're looking for that. And it's very, very detailed. You could think of it almost as if you had an application and you could log in, say it's a medical application. You are a nurse, for example, and you log in, you can enter patient data, but maybe another nurse can log in or an admin can log in and they can see all the patient data in the entire hospital, but you're only seeing your patient data. Well, if that nurse can run some sort of exploit that can see all the patient data, that would be really, really bad, especially if it was in the wrong hands. So those are the kinds of things that we look for with the web app. Can we exploit data? Can we take over accounts? Can we even maybe get on the machine itself that web application is running on? So there's a lot of details that go into web app pen testing, and it's its own specialty. If you actually hear of bug bounty hunting is primarily focused on web applications, where a lot of these major corporations like Facebook, Microsoft, you name it, will pay you if you can hack them, and they'll pay you money for hacking them and finding vulnerabilities. And they could be pretty lucrative. So that's kind of like its own niche, but as a pen tester, if you're working as a consultant, you're almost expected to know that. You're expected to know the network side of things. You're also expected to know wireless pen testing, it's pretty straightforward nowadays. There's only really two types of wireless that we encounter. So there is a like a wireless WPA2 personal, and you can think of that like as you're at your home. And if you're at home and you have that password that you enter, that's like a personal pre-shared key. Now that pre-shared key that you use can be captured by anybody. You could do this. You could watch a blog if you have the right equipment, and it's cheap, like $10, $15. You can capture your own and crack that password. If that password's weak, then we're going to get onto your network. So that's kind of what we evaluate. If they're running personal type WPA2, then we're going to go ahead and check that, see how strong the password is. If they're running enterprise, then we start to kind of elevate our attacks and look at the wireless perspective there. We see if we could pull off things like evil twin attacks and gain access to their network from a wireless standpoint. We'll also look at like a guest network. So imagine a guest network. If you go to even like a McDonald's, or we can use a hospital again. If you're in a hospital network and you sign into the guest, you shouldn't be able to access all the nurses' workstations, but sometimes you can. So we evaluate where we can get to from that perspective. So another type that we do is called physical, social, or phishing. I kind of group them in together. It's social engineering in one form or another. Social engineering can be sending an email, and that's phishing, or I could be vishing, where I call a help desk line and pretend I'm somebody else. It could be physical, where we go on site and we try to break in, either, waiting outside of a smoking area, or picking a lock, or shimming a door. There's a lot of different tricks that we can do, and maybe the goal is to get inside and plant a device, or get inside and get to a network closet. So this is when we talk about the real legal breaking and entering. This is where we try to break into buildings and get in. It's really fun stuff. And then lastly, we kind of have more advanced teaming, which I like to call colored teaming, but one is purple teaming. And purple teaming is where we'll sit down with what is a blue team. So you can think of blue team as defense, and the red team is offense. So they kind of come together and they make purple. And this is kind of more for advanced, somebody that's already had a few pen tests done. And we sit down and we say, hey, I'm going to run this attack. Do you see this attack happening? Okay, if they see it, then maybe we'll make our attack a little bit more obfuscated. We'll make it a little more difficult to detect. We'll run it again. And if they don't see it, then we kind of can increase their baselining, their detection, and really work together so that they have detection in place, and that they're tracking the kind of common attacks that we're doing. And then once we do all these different sorts of assessments, and these just vary on clients. So a client might come and say, hey, I want a network assessment, or hey, I want a web app, or I want the whole shebang. It really just depends. But what we're after in this scenario is when we're done, we have to report back what we've done. So first we wear our technical hat, and then we have to wear this report writing hat. And I put a sad face because not everybody likes report writing, but it's part of the job. So we have to write the report so that, one, it makes sense to a C-level executive, and two, that it makes sense to a technical person too. So we write executive reports and technical reports and kind of combine them together. With the executive report, it's very high level, just says, hey, here's what we found, here's what we did. Technical report will have the screenshots, how we actually got in, et cetera. And once we have all that information, we do what's called a debrief. So we'll meet with the client either in person or on the phone, or depending on the situation, and we will go over the report with them. So this is kind of where you need those people skills. And you don't have to be a socially outgoing person. You just have to kind of fake it till you make it on some of these. So you can just be outgoing for the debrief, and it's also tough because sometimes people will get upset that you hack them. There's a lot of different personalities you have to deal with. So you have to be able to handle people, manage people as well, on top of the report writing and the technical aspect. So with that being said, we could talk about the technical skills that are needed. Broke this down into like a base category and a preferred category. So the base is what I think you really should need if you want to kind of start looking for a job, maybe at a junior level. And then the preferred category would be, hey, if you have all these down, then I would probably be more inclined to hire you at this point. So what we're looking at from a base category, most of us use Linux. I run Windows as a base, but I actually run Linux in a VM, and I work primarily in what's called Kali Linux, and it's just a distribution of Linux that comes built in with a bunch of pen testing tools. There's also another one called Parrot, but familiarity with Linux really helps, and then you can kind of download your distributions if you need to, and tailor yourself and your tools and your methodology. You also should have a good understanding of networking. So if you have the understanding, like if you can see up here what the OSI model is, and you know what that is, you probably already have a decent understanding of networking, basic protocols. If we're talking TCP, UDP, if we're talking even subnetting, just basic networking skills, you don't have to have a huge networking background. You don't necessarily have to work as a network engineer. You just kind of need that networking knowledge, because sometimes you're going to be given a scope, which means that they're going to say, here are the IP addresses that you can test in the network. And if they say, here you go, here's a /24, you better know what that /24 means, because they're going to expect you, being the technical person, to understand what that concept is from a networking perspective. So if you're hearing /24, you have no idea what I'm talking about, you're probably weak in networking. From a coding perspective, I listed it as scripting. So you should learn Python, you should learn Bash, just kind of get these basic scripting skills down, and you should understand the basics, like what is a variable? What is a logical condition? What is an if statement? Like you have to understand the basics, and being able to read code is super important. You don't have to be a developer by any means. I know a lot of people that do not have any coding experience, especially me. I'm a Google coder, so I'll just piece everything together based on the logic. But understanding logic is super important, and being able to write scripts to automate some things, super important. The other thing is you're going to be downloading a lot of tools from the internet that might be related to helping you out in this. And you want to make sure that you're not downloading a tool that's going to infect you with a virus or something along those lines. You want to make sure what you're downloading is legit. So being able to understand what you're reading is super important. On top of that, there is the need for a solid hacking methodology. So when I say a solid hacking methodology, understanding the what are called the 5 concepts of hacking or 5 stages of hacking, where we have what's called information gathering, and then we move into what's called scanning enumeration, into exploitation, post-exploitation, and cleanup. And there are a lot of different courses. I'll provide resources at the end that kind of talk about that methodology and how we go through it. And being able to understand that from a base level is super important, and especially when we talk about that external pen testing or external ethical hacking, because that's really what we're doing. We're going out, we're gathering information about the company, and then we're going to run a tool like Nessus or Nmap, which is going to scan for ports on a machine that might be open or what services they're running. And we're going to look at those, and we're going to do what's called enumeration and research those services and try to find vulnerabilities and exploit them. So we need to make sure that we have that methodology down. And there's a lot of websites out there that you can use to practice on this completely for free and kind of learn that methodology. And then, of course, tool familiarity is important. So if you're seeing these tools up here and you have no idea what they are, you probably need some more tool familiarity. But common tools that we use, Metasploit, Burp Suite, Nessus, these are things that you just learn over time, kind of with that solid hacking methodology. The more you pick up there, the more you're going to pick up this tool familiarity, the better off you're going to get. And then when we move over to the preferred side, Active Directory is king, honestly. If you come into an interview and you have a strong Active Directory skill set and you understand the attacks and exploitations and even the defenses for Active Directory, that's really big. That's what the interviewers are looking for. A lot of the certifications that are out there kind of teach this base level, but they don't really upgrade you to this Active Directory level. So this is kind of a good one. Wireless attacks that we talked about are good as well. These are actually pretty straightforward and not difficult to learn. Like I said, if you spend 10, 15 bucks, you can buy a wireless adapter and test this against yourself. OWASP top 10 is related to web applications. So if you can understand the web application top 10 critical vulnerabilities and be able to understand them from a perspective of, if I say in an interview, what is the OWASP top 10 number 1? You should be able to say, okay, that's injection. And they might say, what is an example of injection? You can say, well, SQL injection is an example of injection. And they might just kind of go on and on about that kind of question. They might say, well, what is the defense? So you might need to know what it is, what the attack is, and how to defend against it, as if you were going to explain it from a technical perspective and explain like I'm 5 to a C level. And then lastly, I've got in here coding skills. This again is just related to the scripting skills. If you can improve upon it, the better off you are. Honestly, I'm still at this kind of intermediate stage of my career where I've never kind of fully been that developer, but I can piece together what I need. So, and a lot of this is relying on other tools. So again, it's very critical that you understand what you're reading and you can get to that kind of mid-tier level, but you don't ever have to be over here. It would just be beneficial for you if you were. Okay, moving on to soft skills, which are, I think, as important, if not more important than the technical skills. I think that with these soft skills, you can learn the technical skills, and this is kind of what weeds out the people that never get into our field. So the biggest one is this strong desire to learn. We kind of talked about this in the beginning where you're always learning in this field. There's something new out every day. There's a new defense, a new attack, and you have to have this desire to learn. If you don't have this desire to learn, you're going to get left behind so fast in this field. You might be up to par with everybody, and then if you just take even 2 months off, you'll be surprised how much you're just being left behind already. So if you're not that consistent learner, this probably isn't the field for you. But if you like that puzzle, that mindset, that solving problems, this is a great one, especially if you love that learning aspect. The other thing that we should talk about is non-complacency. So too many times in my career when I was moving up, I've met people that were in the same job or same field. And I know somebody that's working at the same job that I was 5 years ago in the same position, probably making the same money. And that's great. If they're happy, that's great. But you cannot be complacent in this field. If you're complacent, again, you're going to get left behind. So your goal should always be to be the dumbest person in the room. If you're not the dumbest person in the room, it might be time to leave your company and move on and find somewhere where you are the dumbest and you're learning. You're not complacent. You're always looking to be a little bit better. You're always looking to learn a little bit more. And the issue that we get with people trying to get into ethical hacking is it sounds super cool. The money's great. All those perks I talked about in the beginning, super sexy. But the issue with that is there's a lot of hard work that goes in behind it. If you're willing to put in the hard work and you stay non-complacent and you kind of have these soft skills, that technical stuff will come. As long as you put in the work, the technical things will come to you. And then you will have a great, prosperous career, because we still need people. We're at a deficit. The reason salaries are so high are because people think it's sexy, but they're not willing to put in the work right now. So we are at that very much supply and demand where we're struggling. Cybersecurity is in a need, and we can use people that are willing to put in that effort. So on top of that, we talked about it a little bit, the social people skills that you need. It's very much, you don't have to be a social person. I'm antisocial by nature, but I know when to turn it on, turn it off. So I can go in front of a group of people, present, and then I can go and be done with it when I'm done. But you still have to have that skill set. You still have to know how to interact with people. You might be in a hostile environment where somebody doesn't agree with what you're saying, or you might have to present to somebody that needs a deeper explanation or needs a very, very high level explanation, and kind of be that intermediary. So working on your social people skills, even if you just sit in front of a camera and talk to yourself or a mirror or whatever, and just kind of work through that to where you get rid of the stutters and the ums and those things, and just kind of perfect that craft, will really help you. Perseverance is the other big one here. So if it kind of ties in with the desire to learn, the non-complacency, but just the ability to not give up. A lot of times you're going to be in a situation where you think your back is up against the wall, you're not finding any vulnerabilities, but if you keep working at it and you keep trying, you're going to find that there is something there to exploit. There's something there more for you than what you're seeing. And it's the ability to push through when you think you're at your limit, or you think you're at your wall, that will set you apart from a lot of people. Lastly, and very important as well, is you should be contributing to your community. So if you have a blog post, if you have a blog and you post about blogs, great. You have a Twitter account, great. YouTube channel, Twitch channel, give back. Go join Discord communities or Slack communities. Do whatever it is that makes you happy, but you should be giving back. And there's a few reasons for this. One is that it keeps you sharp. And your blog or your Twitter or everything that you post with content does not have to reinvent the wheel. You could post the same blog content that somebody has posted before, and somebody will still appreciate you for posting it. You will gain traction. Somebody will stumble upon that at some point, and maybe that other blog had a different method that they used to solve something than you did, and your method made more sense to somebody else. You never know who you're going to affect. And if anything, even if you're just writing for yourself and you have notes and you can go back and say, I did this, I remember this, I'm going to go look at my notes. I do that all the time to this day. I'll go back and I'll be on an assessment. I'll go watch a video that I put on YouTube or on Udemy or somewhere, and I'll refer back to it on syntax or something, because it's just so easy to go back to. So having that helps. But from a hiring perspective, if I see somebody's out there and they're helping the community and they're writing blogs, they're giving back, I'm much more inclined to hire you. If you're volunteering, if you just have these soft skills, you're much more desirable of a candidate than somebody who doesn't have that. So be thinking about that. Be thinking about how you can contribute and give back, even if it's joining a community like a Discord or a Slack channel or something along those lines. The nice thing about that is you get to meet people and you get to network. And networking is probably going to be the most important thing in your career. So you should always be networking. Try to be making friends. Try to be making acquaintances, because you never know when you're going to be in need for a job or even lose a job or whatever it is down the road. And somebody that you talk to that knows you will say, I got your back, here, come work for me. Or I know somebody that's hiring. You never know who you're going to meet that's going to be your next boss or next coworker, et cetera. So always be networking, always be learning, don't be complacent, and put content out there, be helpful, be a good person in the community, and it will pay its dividends. Okay, so I'm going to talk through some resources really quick that I think are beneficial for you, and something that if you just want to take a screenshot of this, or I can send my slides when we're done, but if you want to take a screenshot and just kind of note these down as to what you might want to be looking for. So in terms of certifications and kind of where you could start prepping and getting ready, there is this OSCP, which is kind of like the hiring manager gold standard. So honestly, if you go out and you get your OSCP, that's going to get you into interviews. And it's going to kind of get you on that. Remember, we talked the base and the preferred. It's going to put you in that base category where you're getting interviews. You're going to get beat up pretty bad, but maybe you'll land a job, or maybe you'll just keep you'll keep learning from those mistakes in the interviews and keep studying. But it'll put you definitely that base category. It'll definitely get you interviews. There are some other certifications out there that are competitive, like eLearn Security has the PTS, which is like a great precursor to actually taking the OSCP. The PTP is really great competition with the OSCP. It's a different style. It's a little bit more practical. And then the WAPT is like a web app based version of this. So these are kind of network based. This one is focused solely on web application testing. So if you want to fill in that OWASP top 10 from that preferred category, a web app one is really great to go after. Now there's also SAN certifications. SAN certifications are super expensive. So I've listed them here, but unless you work for somebody that's going to pay for them or you do a work study or something along those lines, you're looking at somewhere around $7,000 for certification. I just think that's too much. You can get way more value out of these two. But if you have an opportunity or employer to go for one of these, the GPEN is the pen testing network side of it, and the GWAPT is the web application side of it. Now, moving on to some of the free or / paid hacking labs. My favorite actually right now out of this list is this website called tryhackme.com. And what's so nice about it is free. There is a paid subscription, which is like $10. And it's absolutely fantastic. There are so many things and resources there that are just guided for beginners that will actually hold your hand, walk you through. And you can try it out completely free. If you like it, you can pay and get access to more machines, do a lot of things. It is one of the best resources out there today, especially for beginners. There's also Hack the Box, which is free up until a certain amount of machines. Like you get 20 live machines at any given time. There's also a VIP membership to where you can try to hack all of their retired machines. And the benefit there is that those machines have walkthroughs and stuff. So if you're trying to hack against this, it kind of guides you. And if you get stuck, it'll tell you, hey, here's where you're going wrong. You can go ahead and do this to solve where you're at or where you're stuck and kind of move forward. And the rest of these sites, VulnHub is completely free. These are Linux-based hacking. And Virtual Hacking Labs is not free, but it is a good precursor to the OSCP. So any of these vulnerable machines where you can just kind of spin up, learn how to use Kali Linux, learn some of the tools of the trade and kind of get in that base category and start learning. Again, TryHackMe is probably my favorite at this point in time, but there are a ton out there and a lot of great resources. YouTube as well, great resources. I've got myself on there. IPSec is another one. If he does mostly Hack the Box machines, so if you're doing that VIP retired, you'll probably see his walkthroughs, but they're pretty good to go see that style of mentality. There's NomSec, which is, he's more of a web app base. So if you're interested in the web application side of things, he's really good to look into. And then there's John Hammond, which is kind of, he's actually starting to cover Try Hack Me machines as well. So he's kind of falling into this covering of vulnerable machines category. And then lastly, we have resources continued, which is for women in InfoSec. And actually a lot of these were covered. Shout out again to WoSec for having us here. Chloe was actually mentioned as well. Chloe's a great resource. I got to meet her once and I was with my wife and like, she was so kind. My wife was in love with her afterwards, just like at how nice she was and very responsive and said, hey, you can DM me anytime you want to, if you're interested in getting into the field or any of this stuff. So she's very nice. Tanya Janka is another one who's a big pioneer, I feel like, in the field that is reachable. You can at least at her on Twitter and she'll probably respond to you. Both of these are very responsive. WISP is another great organization. We Are Tech Women is another great organization. So definitely look into these. I know a lot of these organizations give out like vouchers to conferences, like the security conferences. I know some people have gotten DEF CON travel before and different sort of scholarships like that. So it's definitely a good organization to get a part of. If nothing else, just to network with other people that are in similar situations as you and can help you maybe find roles and just the more people you know, again, the better off you're going to be in your career. So that is actually my last slide, and I'm opening here now for any Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but any Q&A that you guys have, I'm going to actually pass this back off to you as a host.
Cool. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Heath. That was really
thank you.
Yeah, so we do have tons of questions actually. So let me just kind of go. We have a few that are more fundamental that I'd like to start with. What advice can you give to a beginner who wants to start learning? What are some of the important basics?
Yeah, so what I usually tell people is you want to have the base foundation. So If you are not strong in Linux, networking, or I would say Python, if those three categories you say I have no idea what you're talking about, those are kind of where you want to start researching. And I would just start with Linux. Like go you can go out to YouTube, go out to Google. Google is going to be your best friend. It's going to be how you make all your money in your career. Honestly, like if you could do great Google research, you're going to be fine. So go out to YouTube, look for a course. If you like structured courses, maybe Udemy has something along the lines of learning Linux. Same thing with networking. If you're unsure on networking, I guarantee there's a YouTube course out there. I guarantee there's a Udemy course. Same thing with coding. So like build up these foundations, because you don't want to just dive into ethical hacking and go right in it without having the foundation, or you're going to crumble on that weak foundation. So yeah, I would definitely start focusing there and then build upon that.
Beautiful. So that question was from Ruth. Thank you, Ruth, for this is great question, by the way. We have another one from Anon. Are there specializations that one should think of concentrating on when they are getting into the pen testing world?
You can. I would suggest starting broad, and this is kind of my thought process is you start broad, you work as a consultant, and when you work as a consultant, you work for a bunch of different companies. You see a bunch of different things. The other thing that you can do is like you could say, yeah, I want to specialize in web app, or I want to specialize in network, and then maybe a company hires you and you go work internally for this company doing network assessments against that company. But you're only going to ever see that company's network. You're never going to see any other weird stuff, you know? So you want to, I would say start as a consultant, and then if you're like, I'm done with this, I just want to go work internally and do something, then do that. But like, get that broad experience. Go see the different variations of people's networks and the craziness that's absolutely out there. Get that experience, and then yeah, you can absolutely specialize. There are specializations, and there's plenty of profitable people out there doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great answer. So we have one question that is more a little bit philosophical, but
Okay.
I'm curious your stance on this. So Ali, who is actually one of our own ambassadors, she provided some great feedback, wonderful presentation, and she's asking, how do you ensure that people are actually hacking for good once they learn those skills?
Yeah, so you really can't, and that's the iffy thing. So you have to surround yourself, like yourself, you have to make sure that you're surrounded with a good community, and make sure that you're not surrounding yourself in sketchy areas, right? If you're hiring somebody from a pen testing perspective, you have to make sure that they're a legitimate company and that you have the right legal ease, I guess, on both sides to cover yourself, cover themselves, make sure that's all there. But there's nothing out there that can stop you from knowing somebody that's learning from this material that's going to go and maybe go try to use this to go attack a company. So like that is the downside. The reason that we're out there and we're doing it is for the good, but obviously with every good, there are bad too.
Totally. I agree. Unfortunately, like with any other skill, people can learn it, but you can't control what people end up doing with it.
Exactly.
But this is a great question, Ali. So we have a question from Paul. Can you suggest some open source application security testing tools?
So it's a little broad. I could tell you kind of what I use if I'm going to take into an assessment. I'll tell you like maybe top 3 to 5. I probably would not go anywhere on an assessment without at least a tool called Nmap, which is just a network mapper. It's going to scan for open ports. It's going to scan for IPs, what's alive in the network. I'll probably take with me something called Burp Suite, which is in case I encounter any sort of web application, I can do testing with that. Metasploit is one that is a framework that is exploitation and post-exploitation. So if I do find a vulnerability, there's a chance that Metasploit already has it. I can go ahead and just run that, get access to it, and then I have a lot of command and control access between myself and that machine, and a lot of things that I can do. There's another open source toolkit that is called Impacket, Impacket, and that is just like this wide variety of tools that is geared mostly towards internal penetration testing and Active Directory penetration testing that I could not live without. And I think those would be probably my top 4. You just build upon them based on your situation, but that's kind of like the Swiss Army knife. If you let me in a network, I could probably get a lot done with just those 4 tools.
Yeah. Wow, you know your stuff. Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for the targeted responses. These are really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have another question from Che Jackson. Do you believe posting on LinkedIn in non-technical verbiage is a good way to assist companies with security and potentially gain future clients?
It's a good question. So I've had so most of my clients come from inbound leads. Basically, they've seen me, they know who I am, and that's kind of how I gain my traction. With the advertising that I've done and posting on LinkedIn, like it doesn't hurt to make your presence known. I would say that the more you're posting out there, you might never get a like or a response, but you never know who's going to come across that. You might say, hey, like I like what that guy had to say, and I'm going to go ahead and email that guy, and maybe I'm interested in him. And it's really just laying this footprint where you might have to leave 1,000 footprints before you get one contact back, or you might have to plant 1,000 seeds before one actually grows.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same thing. So I would not be opposed to telling you, yeah, you should do that. You just might not get anything in return for a while out of it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think one of the tools that you highlighted also is to ensure you have kind of a well-rounded presence on social media and on YouTube. So I think definitely LinkedIn is one channel, but
Mm-hmm.
make sure you're well-rounded from what I learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So we have, gosh, awesome questions, guys. Super engaging, engaged audience. So the next question is from Allie. What is the breakdown of company that hire you, from highly sophisticated to best basic security features? Do you generally find vulnerabilities easily, and are they challenging? So essentially, like I think what Ali's trying to understand is what is the type of companies and what is the scale of difficulty that are engaging you.
Yeah, so we don't actually niche. Some companies will niche into specific either markets or types, like maybe even just medical. We have anywhere from mom and pop shops as clients, startups to Fortune 100 companies. So it really varies depending. And even in finding the vulnerabilities, sometimes you run into mom and pop shops that are more secure than the Fortune 100. So like there's no guarantee what you're going into. You would think that, yeah, there's more money here, more security, but it's not always the case. And finding vulnerabilities, is it easy or challenging? It really just depends on the situation. Some companies they can put you through the ringer, and sometimes you're up against it where you don't find a way in. And I think that's the question that I get a lot is that, what happens when you don't find anything, when you're hired and you don't find anything? And there hasn't been a time where I've found nothing. There's always typically somewhere where a company could improve. Even if it's little, it's something that could be a vulnerability later or an exploit later if they don't fix it now. So just because we didn't break into you this time doesn't mean something can't change next time. Or so the best practices, security in depth, these sort of little things are super important. But it really varies on the easy to hard level, depending from client to client. You never know what you're going to step into until you actually get in there, unless they tell you, hey, we're really bad and we're expecting it to be really bad.
Yeah.
So
great. Thank you. So next question is from Bushra Mustafa. I am hoping I pronounced that okay. So are there any free CTF, which I'm assuming that's capture the flag,
Yep.
opportunities to practice specifically related to web application pen testing? Please suggest them too.
Yeah, I'm going to type them in the chat. One is Hacker 101. So I think it's hacker101.com. It's basically the Hacker 1 CTF. So that is like, if you can go in there and you can do the CTF and you get points, and there's kind of some guidance. You can do some Googling, learn about it. They also have they have videos on there about a lot of the common exploits and how to find them. That's a great resource. If you do the CTF, you accumulate enough points, they actually give you access to private bug bounties. And yeah, it's 100% free. So they give you access to private bug bounties, which, sometimes most bug bounties are public. So you go out there, everybody can see them, but if it's private, only you and a certain select few people can see them. So it's a little bit of advantage to hack against a company that maybe you can make some money. The other one that you should look up is a company called Portswigger, and I don't know specifically what it is, but it's Port Swigger Labs. Actually, I typed it to him specifically, but Port Swigger like this. So they have labs that are out there that are completely free. They allow you to do walkthroughs. They guide you through it, from really, really easy vulnerabilities to some of the most complex vulnerabilities. And they are actually the company that makes Burp Suite that I was mentioning too. So they're a fantastic resource. But any of the big like bug bounty companies, HackerOne, BugCrowd, they're going to have their own training, and a lot of this is free out there. So, and again, Google is your friend. So if you can Google, you're gonna be good in this field.
Awesome. So we have one more question. What is the most unexpected vulnerability you have experienced? And that's from Allie again.
So I guess we could talk. There's a few, but I guess we could talk about the one. We talk Fortune 100 companies, and we talk about their bad security. The worst that I've seen would be externally facing. They had a router that you could go. It was a Cisco router, and literally it was Cisco to log in. So that's default credentials on their router, externally facing, logged right in, created an account, and guess what? You're on their network.
Wow.
So so that's probably the scariest, and given the size of the client and what they were doing, that I've come across.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think that's all the questions. I believe I covered all of them. Please let me know if I've missed any of them. You can just ping in the chat if I've missed it, but I think I covered them all. So thank you so much, Heath. You did an amazing job. I think
thank you. I appreciate that.
We all enjoyed this presentation tremendously. And everyone, thanks for joining. As you know, Heath is going to be available to answer any questions. Also, feel free to contact him. He shared some of his information on social media. So follow him on YouTube. Take some of his Udemy courses. Thanks, Heath. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's great. We've been talking about this for like 2 months now, so it's great to actually see it come into fruition and actually happen. So
say, like, for us, it's like I think for me it's a personal success that I managed to go through this Zoom meeting for the first time. So yeah, it was really great. Looking forward to more content that you're creating, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks for coming, everyone.